There's a lot of things that go into making a good coffee, and you have to understand how difficult it is to get a good coffee.
What or where would you say the worst cup of coffee from a chain is from?
Oh, wow.
Like, where would you not step foot?
There's so many places. Don't get coffee that cheap without compromising on some stuff, right?
Hey guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Catch Ups in My Kitchen with me, Georgia Simmons, host of the podcast. This podcast is about all things food, health and wellness, and today I'm joined by the head of coffee at Grind, Howey. Honestly, I am so excited about this episode because I think Grind have absolutely smashed it, from the branding to the taste of their coffee. So I wanted to sit down with Howey and talk about what has contributed to Grind's success. Also, as a coffee lover myself, I wanted to kind of deep dive and geek out on all things coffee and hear about the whole process, because similar to wine, coffee is a real art, and I don't think it often gets the kind of appreciation of art as it kind of deserves. Also, I've been hearing a lot of things online about coffee, so I thought I would ask Howey to shine some light on these claims, such as coffee has mold in it, and what are the health benefits of coffee. I loved this episode so much, and if you are a coffee lover, I think you will too. But one thing I'd love to ask from you is, in order for this podcast to grow, it would mean the world if you could give us a rating on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to this podcast, as honestly, it really helps us get great guests on, such as Howey. But thank you so much in advance, and I really, really hope you enjoy the episode. Howard, welcome to my kitchen. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's been a really nice morning.
It's been a great morning.
Yeah, we got to meet up in Battersea Power Station.
Yeah, have a nice coffee.
Yeah, met the guys at Grind.
It's been good. It's been good. And they've really expanded that little place. It was a truck and now it's a full-on cafe.
Yeah, we just kind of like proliferated, grew up a little. But I love it.
Very cool.
It's really like, it feels really nice in there.
It does, does. Especially this morning, it was very quiet, very chilled. It was a nice vibe.
I'm biased, but I actually really like it.
Yeah, you're slight bias. Do you mind giving a really quick elevator pitch, who you are and what you do?
Okay, I'm Howey. I'm the head of coffee at Grind. I started the roastery there 8 years ago, and now I pretty much just taste coffee for a living.
I love it. I mean, it's not a bad job.
I know. I'm really
Apart
lucky.
from when you're like on the edge of like anxiety because you've had too much, which we may get to.
Anxiety is kind of my steady state. It's okay. I'm used to it.
We're used to it. Okay, so we have a quick fire round to kick things off about all things food.
All right.
So, cook in or eat out?
I'm a cook-in kind of guy.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I cook in. Favorite restaurant in London?
Okay, just because I went there recently, there's this place called Brothers Cafe.
Yes.
It's like not kind of fancy, but the flavors are incredible.
Is that in Spitalfields?
No, it's in Tottenham.
Oh, okay.
It's like a Somalian restaurant.
Nice.
But they do just this amazing, it's like rice with stuff on top. I don't think there's anything vegetarian in there. But honestly, if you put like, the portion sizes are giant. If you reduce them by a quarter and put them in a Michelin star restaurant, I think they would stand up. It's so tasty.
That sounds really good. Okay, what's your go-to Deliveroo?
You know what? There's this place called Crispy Dosa in Wood Green.
Ooh.
It's like South Indian.
Okay, cool.
It's really authentic. My girlfriend's from Bangalore and she's like, yeah,
fine.
Rate it.
That hits the spot.
Yeah.
What is your go-to cuisine?
I've always loved making Indian food.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say Indian because it's been an Indian theme.
Yeah, I think it's just really, it's really easy to make Indian food with really like cheap ingredients. And I just really love messing around with spices and making my own blends.
I think, and you can do that with Indian, right? Like it's quite flexible to like add a bit of this, add a bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably Indians would be offended by the things I do. But I have fun with it.
But you have fun, so that's fine. What's your go-to fridge or cupboard staple?
Okay, this is basic, but porridge oats.
Oh, yeah.
I'm obsessed with porridge.
Yeah.
If you ask anyone I work with,
my dad is obsessed with porridge. I'm like, He's not really good in the kitchen, but porridge, he is there with it.
Porridge is an art.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And what is your favourite dish to cook at home?
Recently, I've been branching out from my Indian cooking classics, and I've been making Thai curries.
Oh, nice.
From scratch, and I've been getting all the lime leaves and the basil, like the Thai basil from the shop, you know, the frozen stuff.
Yes.
And honestly, I think making fresh Thai curries at home is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so vibrant.
Yeah, and it smells amazing, and there's a lot of comfort in that.
There's this like balance you get in Thai food because a lot of the ingredients are actually quite disgusting on their own.
Yeah, like lemongrass, can be quite...
Lemongrass is crazy floral. Limes are very bright.
Yeah.
You have like shrimp paste is just objectively disgusting.
Yeah.
But when you put them all together, they just kind of balance each other out so perfectly. It's amazing.
So true.
Yeah.
Good one. Okay, so my first question is quite a big question, and maybe quite subjective as well. But what makes a good coffee?
Okay, so I think there's a lot of things that go into making a good coffee, and you have to understand how difficult it is to get a good coffee. Like when you get a really good espresso in a cafe, it's a huge achievement on the part of like people all the way from where the coffee was produced, the way it was shipped, the way it was processed before they shipped it, and then the roasting, and then the brewing, and then actually putting it in the cup finally in the cafe or in your house. All of that stuff contributes to the flavor of the coffee and the texture of it. But I think something people don't talk about enough is context. So I think what makes a good coffee is having a nice cup, but it needs to be in a nice place.
Yeah, good point, actually.
Like I've had a lot of like objectively delicious coffees in like places where I just don't feel that comfortable or like happy. And I haven't enjoyed them.
That is a really good point. I think the aesthetic of where you are, the music that's being played.
Yeah. Honestly, some people, some cafes just don't play music. I'm like, what are you doing?
I know, it all adds to the experience.
Yeah.
And the cup is a really important part too.
The chairs.
The chairs.
The table,
Yeah. And like, what is the right cup? Because I feel like there are different, sometimes you could get it in a glass cup.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get it in a kind of like cup and saucer. Sometimes you can get it like more of like a tumbler. So like, why does that affect the kind of experience?
I mean, there's a lot of research that has been done into this, certainly in like wine and like glass development. I think a while ago I read some like paper on this, but yeah, I think with coffee, for me, at least like anecdotally, it really depends on my mood. Fine. Like if you're, you know, there's something about a really big like cup that's really thick that holds heat well when it's like winter and you're like, I don't know, you're just like,
it's comforting.
You know, but I quite like on the weekends, often I make filter coffee into a wine glass.
No.
Because I want to feel classy.
Way.
And you can also smell, I don't know, there's a thing about being able to get your nose in there and it kind of holds a lot of the like aromatics and you can smell more.
Yeah, good point. I guess similar to wine. Yeah.
The classic espresso cup is great, but sometimes at work I like to make espresso in a big cup so I can swirl it around a lot. Basically, this is a non-answer. I don't know the answer.
I mean, I guess, it depends on the mood. It depends on what you like.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coffee roasts, what do they even mean and how do they affect the coffee? I mean, I know obviously you're roasting it so it's getting darker, but like what does that do to the taste?
So coffee needs to be roasted before it can be drunk. Like do you know much about how coffee is picked?
Basic level, but not in depth.
Okay, so let's say we've picked our coffee cherry. We got 2 of the green beans. They've been processed, shipped to the UK. We then have these green beans. If you tried to grind them, they'd probably break your grinder. They're too firm.
Right.
And so you literally can't drink them until they've been roasted. So we have to do it, and then it's more a matter of how far we go. I think of coffee roasting as a spectrum, from super light roast to super dark roast. Dark roast meaning longer and hotter. Light roast meaning, less hot, less long. And so where you stop on that line of light to dark is really important in terms of what kind of flavors you're going to get out of the coffee. So I normally think about what kind of flavors you want from the coffee and why I bought it in the first place. So let's say I've got a coffee from Brazil. It's super chocolatey, really nutty. I'm not going to roast it really light, because light roasting tends to bring out fruitiness, florals, acidity, whereas a darker roast is going to bring out more chocolate and more nutty flavors.
Okay, interesting.
But also, if you went even further than that and you went super dark, you'd end up kind of just tasting only the roasting process, the kind of cooking of the coffee. If you know
and is that when you burn, or
Yeah.
is that separate to the whole actual making of the coffee, or can you burn it at both stages?
You can burn it all the time.
Fine, okay.
This is
You
why
can
it's such an
tell.
achievement when you have a good coffee. Because
Yeah.
one little mistake at any of these phases can just make it taste really bad. Yeah.
And I mean, similar to wine, I guess, but what are the kind of characteristics that affect the taste of the bean? So what is it that makes it more chocolatey? What is it that makes it more fruity? Is it the kind of where it's been produced, or is it also part of the whole like roasting process?
Again, a bit of everything. It's really complex, which I think is why it's so fun.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot that happens on the farm. So the kind of genetic variety of the coffee tree has a big effect on the flavor. Just like different apples, they have different genetics, the trees, and they make massively different flavored apples.
Yeah.
It's the same with coffee, but also the way that you process it. So the way that you remove the beans from the fruit, how you dry it. Sometimes people ferment things. Sometimes they wash away all the fruit before they dry the coffee. That is all going to have a massive effect on how the green beans arrive and how they'll taste. But then also the flavor from the roasting that we talked about earlier with the light roast versus dark roast can have a big effect too.
Okay.
And how you prepare it at the end. You're going to make a filter or an espresso. What kind of recipe for the espresso or the filter are you going to use?
Okay.
You're going to use loads of coffee and less water, or are you going to use lots of water to coffee ratio?
Yeah, it is a
Fine
real
wine.
art.
You know?
It is a real art. Where's your favorite origin to get coffee from? I mean, you mentioned Brazil, but like, if I know in grind you do a lot of blending, which we'll get onto in a minute, but like, if you had to pick one origin, where would you pick?
I've actually had this. I've talked about this a lot in roasteries, and I feel like my answer changes all the time. But probably, I think Colombia is the place. If I had to have one coffee for the rest of my life, or one country for the rest of my life, I'd say Colombia.
I would say Colombia. If I'm looking and it's just single origin, I'd always be like, okay, and I don't know the brands, let's say, I'm like, oh, I'll go Colombia, and I feel like this one, I know roughly what I'm going to be getting.
It's what's good about Colombia is that it has these real different. It has a lot of everything to offer. So you can get really chocolatey sweet coffees, but you can also get really fruity bright ones, and kind of everything in between.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could have a lot of variety from Colombia. Whereas Kenya, for example, is really distinctively Kenyan, and it's quite a small window of different kind of flavors you get from that country. Delicious.
What are the flavors?
Kenyans typically taste very blackcurranty, very bright, not very chocolatey, more kind of vanilla, and that kind of sugary sweetness. It's delicious. We're just launching a Kenyan filter at Grind at the moment, actually.
Cool.
But it's that Kenya has a thing, and it's kind of, for me, mainly just that one thing.
Fine, okay.
For the rest of my life, I might get a bit bored.
Yeah, no, I get you. And blending. So that is something that you guys do quite a lot at Grind. Why do you blend? And is that kind of a new thing that like Grind was kind of known for? Or was it going on before? Because I'm not too sure, like, I mean, maybe no one started it, but like, is it kind of a new thing to be doing? And why would you do it?
I think actually blending is quite traditional. And traditionally, I mean, people would probably say, like, I say I'm wrong about this, but I imagine a lot of people have tried to like save money and hide some bad stuff in blends.
Fine, okay.
That's me being negative about it. I think blending is amazing. I think there's like a snobbery around people saying things need to be single origin or need to come from one place only. But I think you can get way more depth of flavor in a blend easier than you can with single origin coffees. Like with our house blend, for example, we'll have something really chocolatey and maybe something else, a bit different kind of sweetness, like maybe something really sugary or caramelly, and then something quite fruity. And I can buy coffees that were not really that balanced on their own, and then when you put them all together, a bit like the Thai curry, you can just kind of, you get this greater depth of flavor. So I can buy a unbalanced Colombian coffee that's very green apple-y but not very sweet, and on its own would just be a bit like tart and wrong, and then I can put it with something Brazilian that has like no acidity, and then together they'll like bring each other up so much.
Yeah,
and that's a really fun process, and
yeah.
I think it gives you a greater depth of flavor.
And does your house blend stay the same, or does it rotate?
It rotates, so we try and keep it seasonal.
Yeah.
Just because I think you should. Coffee is seasonal.
Yes.
And if you're using the same coffee all year round, and you let's say you bought it all when the harvest happened, and you'd just be using it like all year, it'd be getting older, and then suddenly it'd be fresh again, and then it's not consistent, and it's not reflective of the seasons.
Yeah, I guess people don't think that coffee is seasonal, but no. I mean, it grows on a tree, right? So like it's going to be seasonal because...
And most coffee countries have a season. Not all, but most of them have one season when they'll grow everything, and everything will produce cherries, and then they'll process it, and then they'll spend the rest of the year growing next year's cherries.
Yeah, interesting.
And so yeah, it's fresh, and then it's not.
And milk and coffee. So we touched on this before we started recording, and I think milk has a real impact on the taste of coffee. So what kind of work have you done with different milks? What are your thoughts on the different milks? What do you like? And I mean, we'll talk about oat milk, but like there's a lot of kind of talk on oat milk at the moment about how bad it is, and how it's like, someone once said to me, oat milk is like pasta water. Think of it like and I was like, I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds awful, but like there's no lying, it is a really delicious like complement to coffee. So what is your thoughts on milk and coffee? What work have you done around it?
These are such big questions.
I know.
It's cool, I like it. Well, milk and coffee is an iconic combination. First of all, they're such good friends. Just if we talk about dairy milk here, like I still think probably something around 75% of high street coffee drinks are with dairy milk. It's like the vast majority, and it is delicious. I see you're drinking your cappuccino while I'm answering this.
Yeah,
that's not a dairy one.
It's not a dairy one.
But yeah, I think it can't be ignored, and our house blend is designed to be served with milk, and I actually designed the blend to work with that specifically.
Yeah.
But also now I think I was vegan for a couple of years, and I realized how many coffees are not designed to work well with oat and with other milks. So I also designed the house blend to work really well with those ones now, and I'm always testing it with those.
Is there any milk that you see people having and you're like, oh no, you're going to literally get it completely wrong?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, certainly in hot milk drinks, I think oat milk, it's a bit like generic, but I honestly think it's the best one by a country mile. Like soy milk, it struggles to not split in coffee. Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed that.
God, I haven't had soy milk in ages.
When it's hot, at least. And therefore there's a lot of preservatives in there to stop that splitting. Similarly with almond milk. Coconut milk is just so fatty. It's so overwhelming. Yeah. It can be really nice. And I know they use a lot of coconut milk in Asia when they're making coffees, like iced coffees. And it works really well. It's just kind of like a dessert. Yeah. It's a different experience. But I love dessert. Yeah. So I'm fine with that. Yeah. To be honest, a lot of milk drinks, like a dairy cappuccino, is kind of a dessert as well.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, because there's a lot of milk in there.
And it is delicious. A dessert? Actually, maybe.
Yeah, it could be.
It's always sweet, isn't it?
Yeah.
It'd be weird if it was salty or spicy.
Yes. You must have a lot of fun with like experimenting with what you can do with coffee and the flavors and stuff. Like salty, that could probably work.
We've been working on we were doing a coffee thing with a Bloody Mary mix.
Oh, wow.
I'm working on that at the moment. It could be fun.
That's quite cool. I mean, going to do a lot of collaborations, and that must be quite fun for you guys to like experiment with different brands and like have that, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I've always got weird ideas.
Yeah, but it's fun. I think it's quite experimental. I think that can be quite good.
I once put MSG in espresso to see how it affected the mouthfeel. And did it? It did. It made it really thick, but it also was maybe the most disgusting drink I've ever had in my entire life.
Actually, one of my questions is like, what are your thoughts about mushrooms and coffee? Because this is a whole new thing that like I'm seeing a lot, like people putting adaptogens into coffee. What are your thoughts on that? I at the moment I find the flavors just don't work. They're like
it's that kind of weird savouriness.
Yeah.
I'm looking into it at the moment because it's an interesting space to be in with coffee. But a lot of these things, I'm wondering why they need to be together.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like adaptogens, there's definitely a lot of positives that can come from these kind of things in your diet and your lifestyle, but do they need to be in coffee?
Yeah,
You know?
I think it's a lot of like, people often talk about habit stacking, right? And I think people are often maybe thinking about like, how can we kind of stack things together so you get kind of two for the price of one? Like in my coffee, I'm also going to get my mushrooms, and that's great. But I get that in terms of convenience, but like in terms of flavor and actually enjoying the drink, like let's be honest, do we want to have lion's mane in our coffee?
Yeah.
On its own, fine. But one thing I quite like MCT in my coffee. I think I love the like benefits of MCT, and like it does affect the taste a tiny bit, but I can't take MCT on its own. I think that's a bit intense. But yeah, in coffee, I'm kind of liking it, and at the moment, it's the only way I can kind of take it.
Can I stop you because I don't know what MCT is?
Right, so it's like
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
Like, do I just like front it out?
Do I just pretend?
Is this a test?
So it is basically made up of like coconut aminos.
Okay.
And it's basically great for your brain health. So it's a supplement, and it's really good for like brain fog and brain health. And sometimes I do get like the odd brain fog when you're waking up and you're a bit like, I'm not feeling like on it.
Yeah.
Whereas that like really, really helps.
Really?
There's a load of other health benefits too. You can get it in oil, you can get it in powder form. I have it in powder form. And I really love it, and I notice a massive difference. So yeah, I've added that into my diet.
Did you have it before this?
No, I didn't. But normally I do have it before an episode because it makes you kind of more on it. But I haven't had it today.
That's good, then we're on the same level.
We're on the same, don't worry. I haven't got a head start or anything. Yeah. So talking of like health, what other health benefits are there to coffee?
So coffee has basically a bunch of health benefits, but they're still really untested. And I think, like before I was in coffee, I was in science, and I did like pharmacology and molecular biology at university. And I'm really wary of making like too many health claims on things. I think it's massively overwhelming in society at the moment. Is this like epic amount of like, this will definitely definitely make you not have cancer, or definitely
the
improve.
Clickbait titles are crazy.
But from what I've read, and I did this a lot when I decided when I realized I was basically having a coffee career, which I didn't intend to have initially. I was like, is this actually something I want to promote? And is this something I want to be drinking a lot of as I get older, as I commit to this? And pretty much everything I read was really positive. There's a lot of chlorogenic acid in coffee. There's a lot of antioxidants in coffee. It's kind of a vasodilator, which can be good or bad in terms of like promoting blood flow generally. Which means the kind of anti-inflammatory effects as well, because blood flow is good for anti-inflammation. But a lot of the studies that have looked into the health of coffee have been quite like giant studies, and there's a lot of complication, and it's quite hard to draw too many.
But it's good to know that it is good for us generally.
I would say, I honestly, I believe that it's really good for you. As long as you do not have massive anxiety or a congenital heart problem. Maybe monitor your intake on that. But it's good to know that it is relatively good for us. And what about decaf coffee? Again, we spoke about this a bit earlier, but like there's been a massive rise in the whole decaf world, and I think it's so cool because as I mentioned, like never really looked at decaf before, and like sometimes I do have decaf if I'm not wanting to have that kind of spike, like especially if you've been like drinking the night before, and you want a coffee but you're like, I can't cope with anymore. Like honestly, that can be really bad.
I've been there. It's like I've got the shakes as it is. I don't need any more. So maybe decaf is kind of, I mean, I'm not a heavy drinker, just putting it out there, but sometimes but like you want something like without the caffeine. But the whole world of decaf is really exciting. So how have you found that? Like what do you guys do at Grind with decaf? So
decaf is, we were talking about this earlier. It's super exciting. It's a very new world in coffee. Obviously, there's been decaf for years, but I'd say I've been roasting coffee for 12 years now. And at the start, like 12 years ago, decaf was pretty bad. I think a lot of farms were pretty much just using their almost the like defective or the wasted coffee that they didn't want, and people were just like buying the stuff that no one else wanted to sell and using that as decaf. The decaffeination processes as well were like harder to, I don't know, they weren't as regulated maybe, and everything was just a bit kind of polluting to the environment. They were using all these weird solvents to like actually remove the caffeine from the coffee, and it was really, I think, a darker world. And I don't know, in the last 10 years I've seen it improve so much. Like farms now, they'll specifically grow lots for decaf. They'll have like specific varieties that make better decaf, and they'll process them everything deliberately from the start to be decaf.
Amazing.
Which in itself is a big start.
Yeah. How do you decaffeinate coffee?
It's a really complicated process, and basically you have to create some kind of solvent that dissolves caffeine.
Fine.
And so what you'll tend to do is get the green beans, the kind of from the farm, the raw coffee beans, before they're roasted, and then you steam them, and then you introduce them to a solvent which dissolves just the caffeine, and then you basically then just remove that solvent, and then you've got decaf coffee beans.
Okay.
And then they're dried again and then shipped to wherever you need to roast them.
Okay.
And then they sell the solvent or the caffeine from that to like Red Bull.
Oh wow! So you can like capture the caffeine and then.
That's where a lot of the caffeine comes from in these other industries.
That's so interesting. And you
Zero
mentioned,
waste.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, you mentioned that you could be like able to decaffeinate your own beans at some point. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking into this at the moment. I mean, like we're not about to build a decaf plant. It's like an insane factory.
Yeah.
But before we talk about that, like the solvents that we're using now are like way better than they used to be. They used to just use these like really weird like chemicals and dump them in the river and cause a bunch of problems. It's really bad. But now they're using they kind of make this alcohol in the beans that we have. At least they make alcohol using sugarcane, and then this makes a kind of really simple like ethyl acetate, it's called, which then can easily be broken down again into basically like water. Wow, amazing! It's like a very it's a far less kind of invasive process, and the kind of end products are really not so bad for the environment.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean, that sounds terrible.
Like I think 90s decaf was pretty rough.
Yeah, that sounds it. Yeah, rough time for coffee.
But yeah, no, we're using a load of decaf now. We're selling a lot, and we're really seeing it growing a lot as well. I think it's kind of not frowned upon like it used to be.
Yeah, I think you can definitely get all the flavour and the body and stuff that you want in the coffee without the spike, which I think maybe some people are looking for now, which I think is really good. Yeah,
and I think it's... Yeah, I've got lots of plans for decaf. I think I tasted some amazing like micro lot fancy decafs in Colombia last year that really just, they were incredible. Like I didn't know they were decaf when I tasted them.
And that's amazing when you have to be like, sorry, is this decaf or not? And then I even ask the question. Like,
and that's like my job.
Yeah, you taste a lot of coffees.
I'm so happy. I want people to like fool me with decaf.
Yeah, it's so great. Amazing. So does coffee have mold in it? This is something I keep hearing.
Yeah, same.
And I'm like, can someone explain this to me? Like, what's going on here? So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so it's mycotoxins, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's possible, just because coffee, the process of producing coffee and actually getting it to be ready to ship involves drying. And coffee is, like the drying process of coffee is really not this big scientific like industrial thing that maybe people think it is. Like most coffee farms will pick their cherries, get their green coffee beans and dry them on a patio, and they'll turn that regularly. And the good farms are really, really on top of it by measuring the moisture in the bed of coffee beans and turning it regularly enough, making sure that the temperature is correct from the sun, covering it when needed. But in that kind of process, when you've got basically a bunch of stuff drying on the floor, it's possible for the development of mold to happen. We test all of our coffees for this kind of stuff. But it is possible. It's an organic product. I think with any organic product, you've got to be, you've got to be ready for maybe some things like happening in the process, and you just got to do your best and work with good people that don't produce this stuff.
Yeah, that's another thing that's kind of like clickbaity on Instagram. Like, coffee's got mold in it, and I was like,
it's like, has it though?
I was like, really?
It's like, well, every London flat's got mold in it.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
And
what about storing coffee? Because I'm sure you can probably create mold in your own coffee just by the way you store it.
You can do. Yeah.
So how should we be storing our coffee?
The most important thing with coffee is to use it fresh. Fresh is good. Mold doesn't like fresh things.
Fine.
I always tell people that order as little and often as you can.
Yeah.
You don't need to store coffee in the fridge, but store it somewhere dry.
I read that and I was like, why would anyone put it in the fridge?
It's such a classic thing. I think I used to do that before I was in coffee. Yeah.
Wow.
It's kind of just like, you just think it preserves freshness because it does in other things, right?
Right, yeah, true.
But it doesn't.
And also, does that make it damp? Like,
maybe a little.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's just cold.
Yeah.
It's like 4 degrees.
Not the place for coffee.
No.
So it needs to be dry.
Yeah. Dry, cool, ideally temperature stable. So not like on a windowsill in the sun.
Yeah.
In your...
on my balcony.
Conservatory.
Yeah, not the one.
Yeah.
Not near a kettle, I guess.
Ideally not, yeah. But again, like, I think just... if you're going to keep it near a kettle for 6 months, okay, it's not ideal. But if you're going to keep it there for a week and then you're going to buy another bag, no problem.
Fine, okay. So I'm guessing coffee has a shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
And people might not think that. They just think it's dry. Like, when I see some of these like dried filter coffees in the supermarkets, I'm like, how old is that? You just don't know.
It's weird, like with the shelf life in coffee doesn't really go off unless it gets moldy.
Fine.
Which it shouldn't do if it's stored correctly.
But you can't tell, can you? Can you tell if a coffee's gone moldy just as a consumer?
You can taste it.
Fine.
If it's properly moldy, So I taste coffees from lots of farms, and sometimes you'll taste something where there's a defect, and you'll be like, oh, wow, that's got mold in it.
Fine.
That's bad. But generally, no. You'll see if the beans or the ground are like they have mold on them, just like any other food.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'd have to go so far for it to.
Yeah.
Have that like visibly on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never seen that in coffee.
Okay.
And I don't know.
I
don't know
haven't.
what you would have to do.
Yeah.
Keep it in like a cave for a year.
Yeah.
Or something in the south of France.
Yeah.
So
fine.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. And so how long does coffee beans last, really? How long should you be keeping your beans for?
I think I would say we always say like 3 months is an absolute maximum. Mm-hmm. We always do a lot of things to keep our coffee tasting great for longer, because I know some people use it after even longer than 3 months.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think ideally you'll be using coffee after 1 month. Mm-hmm. And with ground coffee, even less.
Okay, yeah.
But we do design our coffees, and our bags have a really solid like one-way barrier to not allow oxygen in, and they're also nitrogen flushed.
Okay.
So the idea is there's a perfect, you should use your coffee within a week.
Yeah.
And then there's 1 month is fine. But I understand that, I used to use coffee that was like 3 months old.
Yeah.
And I'm not about to just assume that everyone in the world is as kind of anal about it as I am.
Yeah. Fine.
So I try and make sure that if people are being bad, it's still going to taste great for them.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's kind of a counterintuitive thing.
Yeah. I guess ultimately taste is key. So you're there right, I want the majority of people to be able to have the best tasting coffee when they make their coffee.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Which means like compromising on what I think is perfect.
Yeah.
But, the world's not perfect.
No. Yeah, very
Very
true.
much not perfect.
Very true. So there's no denying that grind has like gone from strength to strength to strength, and is now a brand bigger than probably you guys imagined when you first, kind of like 8 years ago.
So much more.
Yeah. So what do you think contributes to grind's success?
I think we've just been really good at sticking to what we believe in. Like David he's a great owner. He started this cafe in Shoreditch, and I still feel like everything feels kind of related to that cafe. And that's, as we're growing, that's the goal, is like we want to bring that Shoreditch cafe to Tesco's or to someone's house in Hastings or like the Netherlands or the USA. And I think we just always like keep that, the core of our brand together. And actually the core of the brand, like when David started, it was pretty much just making flat whites with good music in like a fun place. And it's not uptight, there's that context, that kind of good context that hopefully we can maintain. And it's with everything that we do online and the way that our boxes arrive if you order from the online store, or how they look on the shelves of supermarkets versus everyone else's coffee. We do like cool tins. We've got some limited edition tins, and like cool collabs. Actually, just doing a new collab today with Hello Kitty.
Oh my god,
which is
fun.
really fun.
That's so fun.
That's just like hilariously fun.
Yeah, really cool.
And cute.
Yeah.
So I think staying true to like the actual identity of the brand through all of the changes around us, through like, Shoreditch is very different than it was in 2011. And the world is very different from how it was back then. But we're still just kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and that's so nice. I think context is so key, as you kind of mentioned, like what makes a good coffee is the context, as you said at the beginning.
Totally.
So having that, and I think the branding is so strong with Grind. Like you can spot Grind from a mile away.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really cool. And I guess also ultimately it tastes great.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other side of it, is that we've always done coffee, like we've always bought coffee from really nice people that we really we like the producers, and we've always had, I mean, personally, it's been a big deal for me that everything is always sustainable. And like, I care a lot about the environment and so does David, and so does the whole like board of Grind. And so as we've grown, we've had the chance to start buying directly from people, and we've always bought directly from people that we really kind of trust and care about, and we know that they care about the environment and their workers too. So
yeah, so nice.
Sustainability. I hope that comes across.
Yeah, definitely. I think it does. And sustainability has been a huge thing for you guys. I mean, you've got your compostable pods, you've got, am I right saying, the Better Coffee Foundation, and you're now B Corp. So like, touch on kind of those things, because I think consumers sometimes forget that comes at a cost for businesses.
Totally.
But obviously it's what businesses should be doing, but it is costly. So can you touch on kind of like your impact on those kind of changes, and what you guys do at Grind to be so sustainable?
Yeah, we have a lot of kind of awkward conversations around, like, things are just expensive when you're trying to be like sustainable. Like compostable materials cost like way more than like foil or aluminium, and they also perform often not as well, and it's just like more effort. Like we got this packing machine during COVID, and it was designed to work with foil like bagging material. We had to kind of change everything about it to make it work with compostable material, and it was just a nightmare. Like we were like, like pulling our hairs out.
We're trying to do a good thing here.
I hate the environment. But it was really important to it's always been important to us to do that, and it's kind of it's not even a debate, it's just
it's a given.
And now as we're growing and I'm buying more coffee, and we're naturally like looking for more farms to work with and starting to work in other countries, it's just the first question is like, are the people nice? Is their farm good for the environment? And I think a lot of the talk around environmental, like sustainability stuff, is around like certificates, a lot of tick boxing. We have just been like got this B Corp thing, which is a bunch of tick boxes. So I'm not denying that tick boxes are important, but I think we're trying to do more than just that. And for me and for David and for everyone else involved, we have like quite a strong kind of moral belief in what we're doing, and the farms that we work with, we don't just want to be B Corp, we want to do what we actually believe is good too. And so we, like, I could talk for days about
but it's so important. What about some of the campaigns you've done? Why have they angered people?
We did a thing on the tube which said our pods disappear quicker than your landlord's when there's a leak.
Oh, nice.
And we got loads of emails about that.
Really? That's so funny. Shows you're doing something right, though.
Yeah.
When you anger people, it's like, yeah, no, well, it got a reaction.
Yeah.
And any reaction's better than no reaction.
Yeah, I mean, we need landlords. We can't all be homeowners.
No.
But, there's some dodgy landlords out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there are.
It was just funny, like the kind of responses that we got. We like doing that.
Yeah, that's cool.
We also had a bunch of George Clooney lookalikes launch when we launched our King's Cross Cafe.
Oh, cool.
Which was really funny, kind of poking fun at some of the bigger like pod brands.
That is quite cool.
I think we hired like all the George Clooney lookalikes in the UK.
Nice. Are there a
really
few of
surreal.
those? Are there a few?
Yeah.
Wow. Pretty niche.
Yeah.
Nice. So this is quite and you are allowed to name and shame here because I think no one from these big chains are going to listen to this as much as I hope they did.
Yeah, maybe that will disrupt
maybe
some stuff.
maybe this will cause some disruption.
Let's get a lawsuit today.
Yeah, let's do it. So what or where would you say the worst cup of coffee from a chain is from?
Oh, wow.
Like, where would you not step foot?
There's so many places. I once actually was at a place that roasts the coffee for one of these big chains, and I didn't know they roasted coffee for one of these big chains. And I was in the lift with like the head coffee buyer and one of their like owners of the company, and I was like, oh yeah, I was gonna go get a coffee in this place in the train station on the way here, but it's so bad I didn't want to. And then they were like, we roast that coffee.
No way.
It was frosty.
That is
in
so
the lift.
funny. You're like, oops.
You're like, cool, yeah, actually,
Okay.
there's no way of going back from it.
No.
When it's like, cool.
Well,
Just
yeah.
apologise.
I mean, now you know that your coffee is terrible, so that's that.
Yeah, and they know it's terrible too.
Which chain was that?
That was Pret.
Yeah. Guys, listening, if you've got a Pret subscription, like, what?
It's cheap.
It's cheap.
It's too cheap.
It's too cheap, but it's such bad coffee.
I mean, you don't get coffee that cheap without compromising on some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what coffees they're buying.
No.
But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it personally.
No.
But I do enjoy their posh cheddar ploughman's.
Yeah, their food bits are good.
So
Yeah.
But maybe cheese experts would say don't get their posh cheddar challenge.
Yeah, very true, very true.
But no, if I could say the one that I would say is the worst, it's Costa.
100%. I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah. It's just their cups are just so weird and big.
Yeah, and like, why are they bumpy like that? Like, who wants to? I didn't get it.
And even the cups they have they're like weirdly thick and rounded.
Yes.
The whole thing and the colour scheme, I don't know.
Context is key.
I'm not into it. Also, they're really kind of cocky about their like head of coffee. His like nose is insured for like millions of pounds or something like that, and I'm like,
really?
I don't know. It's just,
that's crazy.
When you see
no.
these articles and you're like, why? What's going on?
I'm sorry to any Costa lovers, but it does taste like dirt to me. I
don't love it.
When people say I hate coffee or don't like the taste, I'm like, that's because you've had like a Costa and like get it. Mm-hmm. When like I appreciate why you don't like that because it's not great.
Also, why is it called Costa?
Yeah,
it means like coast.
In
Spanish.
It doesn't make any sense. It's not. It's just a no. It's a no from us.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, Costa lovers. It's a no.
I hope I never like want to work at Costa or something.
No, I don't think you can go from grind to Costa. I just don't think it's. I don't think it's a good transition.
It's not good for me.
No. So what is next for grind? I'm sure there's loads that you probably can't share, but from what you can share, what is next for grind?
So we're going to be doing lots more collabs.
Cool.
We love collabs.
Yeah.
They've been really fun, and I think they kind of inspire us quite a lot to like go out of our comfort zone. I'm randomly like I said this to my boss yesterday, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" But I'm thinking about like pickle juice and coffee.
Oh wow. I mean, pickles are having a moment.
Information.
This is fresh. This is like hot off the press.
New trend for like 5 years from now.
Pickles are having a moment.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
But wow, pickle juice and coffee is a niche combination.
Yeah, it's probably terrible. It's probably like this MSG thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I once put chili in coffee as well. It's really bad.
Oh, I thought that could actually be quite nice.
No,
okay. Don't do that at home.
It just improves your perception of body, of things.
Okay.
But what else is going on? I think we will probably... Like, we're gradually kind of expanding out of London. Like, we've got we've got like supermarkets now where you can buy our coffee around the country. And I can imagine that we'll start to like spread further out of London. Like I just want to get the brand
out there
more, and maybe out of the UK as well. I think it'd be cool to do some stuff in Europe.
I think so. I can see Grind going out of UK.
Maybe even in the US.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. I think there's a lot of kind of things, like ideas that we're having, but we're just kind of trying to work out what the best way
Which
is to
one
do
is
stuff.
the right one? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we always finish with the same question, and again, it's back to food.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is, what would your last meal be? Starter, main course, and dessert.
Wow. Okay. Can I start with the main course?
Yes.
I don't know why this just popped into my head.
That's fine. Start with the main
The
course.
last meal. Probably gonna just have like a fish and chips from my hometown.
Good one. Would it be like in the whole newspaper, like really
Yeah,
authentic?
like not a fancy one.
No, just a standard
Just
kind
a
of
classic chippy fish and chips.
Yeah.
With just with salt and vinegar.
Are you a mushy
No
peas
condiments.
person or not?
You know what? If it's the last meal, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
Fine. Go on. Treat yourself.
Starter. That's interesting. I'm not normally a starter kind of guy. So I'm just going to say like one really, really fancy olive.
Ooh.
Like the most expensive olive in the world.
Yeah. Okay, nice.
Because you know
would it be a
olives have this,
stuffed
like-
olive or would it be just
No,
a plain?
no, just pure.
Lovely.
You know, olives have this crazy like rating system.
No.
Like the world of olives is like the world of coffee.
Really?
And there's like loads of different kinds of olives you can get, and yeah, I would get an olive expert to find me the finest olive in the world.
I just have one. I love that. Just one olive to start.
And then basic fish and chips.
Basic fish and chips.
And then dessert. I love dessert. I love coffee, as we've discussed. It's a dessert.
It's a dessert.
That's an interesting one. I think I would probably have a really amazing creme brulee.
Oh, nice. Yeah, good one.
You know, nostalgic.
Yeah, nice.
Just a classic, no flavours, none
Just
of
a
these like
basic-
passion fruit creme brulee.
No,
kind of
no.
vibes. Just
Bog
really nice
standard,
one.
but good.
Yeah.
And would you have a coffee with it?
Yeah, I'd have an espresso at the end. That would be my final thing that I consumed.
Love it.
I want to
love
die
it.
with the taste of a good Colombian in my mouth.
Nice.
That sounds weird.
No, but I got what you meant.
Yeah.
Howey, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, it's the world of coffee. I think a lot of people just think it's quite like one-dimensional, like it's coffee, but there's so much that goes on. There's so much to it. It's a whole art, like wine. And I think we often have like wine tasting experiences and like going to the vineyards and like wine is this whole art and then it's just coffee. I'm like, no. Like, I mean, as you can probably tell, I love coffee too, but like I quite like the whole art of it, and I think it needs to be celebrated. And I think Grind do an amazing job of like celebrating the art and keeping the art, but also trying to get it out to the masses. So yeah, I love it. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been great.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure talking to you.